Thank you for tuning in to the Practical Preservation Podcast. Please take a moment to visit our website, practicalpreservationservices.com, for additional information and tips to help you restore your historical home. If you've not done so, please subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, and also like us on Facebook. Welcome to the Practical Preservation Podcast, hosted by Danielle and Jonathan Kepperling. Kepperling Preservation Services is a family-owned business based in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, dedicated to the preservation of our built architectural history for today's use as well as future generations. Our weekly podcast provides you with expert advice specific to the unique needs of renovating a historic home, educating by sharing our From the Trenches preservation knowledge and our guests' expertise, balancing modern needs while maintaining the historical significance, character, and beauty of your period home.
Today on the Practical Preservation Podcast, we have Noel from Olde Good Things with us. Noel, thank you for joining us. Or me. I guess it's just me.
Nice to join you too, Danielle.
Thank you. So tell me a little bit about your background.
Well, I've been doing architectural salvage for, I guess, about 30 years now. And it's been with the same company, with Olde Good Things. So I have a pretty good idea of the jobs we've done and so forth. It's a lot of history in it.
Yes. So how did the business get started?
Well, there was a small group of us, and we started selling things like antique dishes, doorknobs, typical flea market type thing back in the 90s, 80s. Losing track now, but
it would, if it's 30 years, it would be the 90s, which that makes me feel a little bit old too.
Yeah. So yeah, it started like that, and then one of the guys saw it. Somebody sold him an iron gate, probably from an old brownstone in Brooklyn, and he flipped it right away and gave him some ideas like, hey, why don't we do architectural? So we started it little by little. I remember I think that our first job was a historic church on First Avenue across from Bellevue Hospital.
Oh, yeah.
And we got some tremendous stained glass windows out of there and other architectural items. And it just kept growing from there.
Yes. Do you typically go and then remove the items that you're going to resell? Is that part of what you do? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And since we've built up a relationship with the contractors and demolition people in the city, so they know what to expect.
Yeah.
They come to us. We pursue them as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that those relationships are important because I know from our work where we usually go in and pull everything out that's going to get restored before the demolition crews go in, because after they've been in, there won't be anything left.
Well, that's part of the trade. You have to be extremely careful, but you also have to be very quick to stay ahead of them.
Oh, yes.
So it's a little bit pressure, but yeah, it works. We have a very good team.
Do you consider your work primarily preservation based, or is it more, I don't know what the other word would be, more antiques? Like what do you consider yourself? Or is it kind of an overlap?
It is definitely an overlap because they are antiques. We do deal in a lot of antique lighting. We get tremendous lighting out of commercial buildings in New York City. We've done that for years. So they're genuine antiques, but it's definitely preservation. And we have a lot of clients that have done incredible things in their homes with these fixtures and with architectural remnants. Even like things like gargoyles from the outside of buildings or terracotta. New York is like our main base of where we find things, although we spread out from there. But that's where we started with the architectural salvage.
Yes.
And like, for example, we used to do a lot with the terracotta stones. You know, when you're walking around in the city, you can't really see them up there. You don't always look up and see all the
Right.
beautiful
Like the
decorations.
cornices, is that what the
Yes.
terracotta cornices? Okay.
Mhm. Terracotta. We've also done a lot with copper cornices, and not everybody can put a huge copper cornice into their home. So the way we preserve those is we make them into what we call an altered antique, and that is like we make mirrors with these big copper frames.
Oh, and they would be super wide. That sounds cool. Do you
Mhm.
have pictures of those on the website?
Yes. Yeah. We have many more than what's on the website actually, but yeah, they're great for like loft spaces and bigger spaces. And we also make smaller dressing mirrors and just over the sink type mirrors too.
That I think that is, especially if the building is already going to be lost, it makes sense to salvage as much as you can out of
Right.
it to reuse it, from a preservation standpoint, but also from an ecological standpoint. And
Yeah.
I know Portland, Oregon, just add it to their already very stringent building code that if you're going to demolish a building, you must dismantle it pretty much, so, and reuse as much as you can.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
and I think that's probably the direction that a lot of a lot of municipalities are going to go into, just to help the greenness, and also,
Hmm.
to kind of discourage demolition also.
Right. We've done a number of buildings like that. For example, what is now Walt Disney like Row in Manhattan, 42nd Times Square. That used to be a bunch of theaters, like the
Okay.
Rialto Theater, the Victory Theater. Charlie Chaplin used to perform at the Rialto. They kept the facade of the I believe it's the Victory Theater to, you know, preserve the history there. And so it was the inside that we extracted architectural elements.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they salvaged the facade, but
Hmm.
they were changing the interior.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your products and your services, and like the types of architectural salvage you have, what your geographic area. I'm assuming you ship because you do have multiple locations, but explain it to me.
We have a we actually have we have our New York City stores, which sadly are closed at the moment, but we hope to reopen those soon. Those are our biggest showrooms, but um, our warehouses as well as a retail location are in Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So we consider that our national headquarters, even though we got New York, and then we've got LA, and then we've got Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Yes.
But that's where we house most of our larger architectural pieces. And we clean them up and bring them into the city, into the showroom, or clean them up and present them on the web store. And obviously many things are going internet
Oh yeah.
like crazy these days. So we do what we can to get it up there. But people love coming into our showroom. They love coming into the warehouse and digging around, that type of thing. Like I mentioned, we do a lot of lighting, and we restore them in-house when we sell them, so that they're cleaned up and ready to go when our customers receive them.
Do you and I'm trying to think about how to say that, do you like the things that you sell on the East Coast, is it different than what you sell on the West Coast, or is it a mixture of both?
It's a mixture, but
Okay.
I guess it varies by people's taste.
Right.
One thing we do a lot of also is chicken wire glass.
Like the
Which,
old safety glass.
yes, there's a real trend with that, like in restaurants, in interior design, and people well, they buy it all over, but they do buy it quite a bit on the West Coast. Yeah, we probably have the largest selection of that. in the
And is
United
that just
States.
sheets of it that you're
Mhm.
selling? Okay.
Yeah, and we've gotten some from, one was from an old, a huge factory in Birdsboro, New Jersey. It was an iron or metalworks factory, and then during World War II, they had to, reroute their production
Oh yeah.
to making tanks. So, that's what they did in that crisis during World War II. So that's what this factory was, and we got some incredible huge Hall of Fame light fixtures, and
Oh yeah.
the green factory fixtures. People like those in different settings, but we
Like
got some
that and the
huge
industrial
ones.
look. Yeah.
Yeah, and then that was one of our bigger chicken wire glass jobs. But we've also gotten chicken wire glass from the Time Life buildings in New York
Mm.
and places like that, commercial locations.
Yeah. And, are these buildings usually getting dismantled, or are they just upgrading to more modern safety glass?
Well, the Time Life obviously was upgrading.
Okay.
And the other one, as far as I know, that was demolished.
Yeah. Okay. So,
And
and you've talked a little bit about some of your projects, and but do you want to share some about any prominent or interesting pieces
Mhm.
or buildings that you've taken things out of?
Well, a very interesting one that we've done recently is the Waldorf Astoria, and that took a few years of keeping after them when the contracts were coming to sell the Waldorf Astoria. So we finally got that job, and they were able to, historic preservation was able to get like the main ballroom, the main floors, so those
Uh-huh.
are landmarked,
Oh, okay.
landmarks rather.
Right. Yeah.
So the first few floors are landmark, which is really good. So those are as is, because the rest are being condoed. And
Oh, yeah.
what we did is we went in and carefully extracted all of the marble mantles out of there, which those would have been demolished most
Yes.
certainly, as well as other lighting fixtures, many of which we have on our web store. Both of those items are available on our web store.
Okay.
We did something similar over at the Plaza Hotel. That was years before. We got the marble mantles out of there and some incredible chandeliers, some of which we still have.
That's
Some other famous
Mhm.
buildings is, for example, the Flatiron buildings. Back to the window issue. They didn't have chicken wire, but what they had in the turn of the century is they would copper clad the windows in
Oh, yeah.
commercial buildings. So we've extracted those type of windows, these copper framed windows in the Flatiron, the Toy Building, the Fifth Avenue Gift Center, and a few Cooper Union. And so these are what we do with those is we polish up the copper and make those into mirrors. Like
Oh, yeah.
yeah, many people have like a toy building mirror or a Flatiron building mirror over their fireplace against the brick wall, in
Yes.
Manhattan.
Yeah. That sounds beautiful, because then you
Yeah.
still have the patina and everything else, but you're
Mhm.
just switching out the glass for the mirror.
Yeah,
Yeah.
some of them, people tend to like those ones polished, although we do
Oh,
patina
yeah.
also. We do both.
Mhm.
But that's a great piece of history to preserve because it's useful and you have a piece of history. So,
Yes. And it's selling one of a kind things, things that people can
yes.
make as a centerpiece in a room that they can talk about. It can be a
Yeah.
piece.
Yeah, we get a lot of that.
Yeah. So we talked about it a little bit, but architectural salvage is a form of recycling and reuse.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you highlight? Is that something that's important to your clients? Do you use that as an angle, or is it just like a byproduct of what you're doing?
Our clients are definitely interested in recycling and staying green, but we're kind of like I would have to say we're naturally green.
Right.
We probably should promote it more, but we do a little bit, but not quite enough, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. I find that with our work too, but once you start talking to people about it, then they do realize, oh, it is, and I don't think that people think about our built environment as much as we probably do. So.
Yeah. But it's definitely, green is definitely what we're all about. It's
right. Yeah.
green.
we were someplace yesterday, and Jonathan and I were just like going back and forth between ourselves. And I'm like, oh wait, he doesn't understand what we're talking about. Let's slow down. So what do you wish that you knew when you started that you know now?
Oh, I would say like that. If we had documented things a little bit better, because we still have some original pieces, and we still do have that information in our people's heads who've been doing it for 20, 30 years, and we're working on the documentation, and we have some of it documented, but I guess that would.
Yeah, I think that would be, and that's when you're first starting out and you're just kind of, falling into this. I could see how you wouldn't think, oh, this is important. Maybe we should.
It's a kind of a learn as you go process.
Yeah,
so
it is.
That's
it is
definitely one I would have ramped up.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you want to share before we wrap up?
Let me think. Well, you mentioned about delivery. We do deliver.
Okay.
All over the country, big and small. As a matter of fact, we ship out of the country to retail people as well as other dealers or interior designers. So, nothing. We find a way to ship it big or small.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And do the majority of your clients come to you through an interior designer, or do you do sell directly to the consumer too? Is that correct?
It's both.
Yeah.
It's a lot of both. Yeah. And we try to it's a little tricky getting everything online.
Yeah.
Because these are all individual items.
Mm-hmm.
Not all, there's some that there's multiples of.
Right.
But they are unique items. So that's a little tricky, but we're making progress.
Well, and I'm sure it's time consuming too, and that's
yes.
always slows you down. You're trying to get work done, not that isn't work, but it's different.
Yeah.
So how can our listeners contact you?
The easiest way is on our website, oldegoodthings.com, and you have to remember to put the E after the old. It's an easy thing to miss.
Okay, and I'll make sure that that's on our site also, where the podcast will be, so if somebody can go directly to that and find you.
Yeah, and that's got phone numbers on.
Okay.
Well, they can reach us by phone on our main number. It also has our store locations, which we're looking at how to open that. Maybe we'll have to be doing appointments, which I think a lot of our customers would like, actually.
Yeah.
Coming in by appointment.
And I think that could work well.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, and that would eliminate the amount of people in the store, but it would also allow you to let people come in and see and touch things. So
yes, yeah, we've got a lot of people who definitely like to do that.
Oh, did you have any offers for our listeners? Anything that you wanted to promote?
Let's see. I didn't consider a specific discount ahead of time, but can always say, hey, I heard the podcast and I get the podcast discount. We'll figure out what it is.
Okay, that's fine. I will just write that down, and you that could be a negotiation. Well, thank you very much for coming on and sharing what you do and your piece of preservation with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Practical Preservation Podcast. The resources discussed during this episode are on our website at practicalpreservationservices.com/podcast. If you received value from this episode and know someone else that will get value from it as well, please share it with them. Join us next week for another episode of the Practical Preservation Podcast. For more information on restoring your historic home, visit practicalpreservationservices.com.